thanks. I sat down across the table from her. It's been 5 years. I took a deep breath. 5 years, and a lot of changes. I have adjusted, although, of course, I still miss him. Laura looked up at me again, her inquisitive expression tempered by a kind smile. I guess leaving your teaching career and becoming an innkeeper was a way to make a new start after Brent's death? Yes. I felt I needed a major change. My great-aunt Isabella thought so too, which is probably why she left chapters to me in her will. Do you miss it? The teaching, I mean. Sometimes. I swallowed back any further expression of my feelings on that topic. I did miss teaching, more than I like to admit. You quit long before I did. Do you ever regret that decision? Heavens, no. Laura rolled her eyes. I was never really cut out for the job, to be honest. Not like you. I always considered you a born teacher. Well, I only chose to do it because 20-something me thought being a freelance artist was too scary. But then you took off for parts unknown. I fiddled with my fork. After you left that last day of school, none of us knew where you'd gone. Laura swept one slender hand through the air. It wasn't meant to be a big mystery. I just headed to England. She flashed a bright smile. I lived in London for a few years as a child, in the early 80s. My dad, who was a lawyer for a shipping company, got posted there. Her expression sobered. Dad died about 7 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Although I'd met the man only once, at Laura's lavish wedding. I recalled Laura often talking about her dad during the short time we'd taught together. I know you two were very close. Laura managed a faint smile. Yes, we were. Only child, you know. Anyway, I always remembered London as one of the best times in my life. So, when I quit teaching, I decided to see if I could go back and recapture the magic. And did you? I asked, with a lift of my eyebrows. Somewhat. Of course, I didn't have much money, so it wasn't quite as glamorous as I remembered. But I did stumble into an apprenticeship with a jewelry designer, which turned out to be a very happy accident. You've done quite well since then, though, especially with your illustrations. I examined her calm face with interest. I've seen your work in several of the books my friend Julie stocks in her bookstore. Laura settled back in her chair. I have a decent number of commissions every year, but it's really the jewelry that makes me a living. She lifted one hand to brush back her dark hair, revealing a pair of exquisite earrings. They were a unique design, a peacock in a circle, its tail delicately worked in a filigree of gold and brilliant enamel. Those are gorgeous, I said. Your creation, I assume? One of my more popular items. Laura lifted her water glass and took a sip. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to discuss the upcoming week of events. First of all, let me say I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me before my group arrives at the B&B. No problem at all, I said, glad the conversation had finally focused on the reason for our meeting. I glanced over my own menu briefly, just to make sure the item I wanted was available. Still, for you to allow us to book a week at Chapters at the last minute was very kind. Laura laid down her menu and settled back into her chair. When you told me you might not be able to fit us in, my book club was so disappointed. It was fortunate I had that cancellation. I snapped my menu shut and placed it across my plate. Well, not so fortunate at first, but when it turned out I could accommodate your group, I was glad it had happened. The first reservation had nothing to do with Chapter's literary offerings. While that was the real draw for us, Laura said. What could be better for a book club retreat than a literary-themed B&B with a splendid private library? It is the perfect combination. Laura nodded. I hope you don't mind that I've done all the planning for this week's events. I know from your website and brochure that you usually handle such things, but my book club is pretty decisive about what we want to do each year. She smiled brightly as the waiter approached the table. I'll try the soft shell crab sandwich.